On November 12, 1996, the night sky above Delhi was alive with the constant movement of aircraft, each following its own invisible path through the darkness. The city below glowed with lights, while above, the airspace was a complex web of arrivals and departures, all coordinated by vigilant air traffic controllers. Among the many flights that evening was Saudia Airlines Flight 763, a massive Boeing 747 carrying 312 people, passengers and crew, on their way to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. The jet engines roared as the aircraft lifted off the runway, climbing steadily into the night sky, its lights twinkling as it disappeared into the clouds. At the very same moment, Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, an Ilyushin IL-76 with 37 people on board, was making its approach to Delhi. The aircraft descended smoothly, its crew preparing for landing, focused on their instruments and awaiting further instructions from air traffic control. The Saudia jet was cleared to climb to 14,000 feet, while the Kazakh plane was instructed to descend to 15,000 feet. This 1,000-foot vertical separation is a standard safety buffer, designed to keep aircraft safely apart even as they cross paths in the busy skies. On paper, the plan was flawless. Every detail had been carefully mapped out, with flight plans filed, altitudes assigned, and routes coordinated to avoid any conflict. But in the real world, safety is never just about procedures. It depends on people, pilots, controllers, and the technology they rely on, all working together in perfect harmony. Even the smallest miscommunication or technical glitch can have serious consequences. Unseen risks were quietly accumulating as both planes entered the same narrow air corridor, their flight paths converging in the darkness. The margin for error was razor thin, and any deviation could prove disastrous. Inside the cabins, passengers and crew trusted the system, confident that they were in safe hands. No one suspected that a chain of small, seemingly insignificant failures was already unfolding, setting the stage for tragedy. In the silent darkness over Haryana, as the world below slept, disaster was about to strike, changing countless lives in an instant. In the heart of Delhi's air traffic control during the 1990s, VK Dutta faced a daunting challenge every day. He managed a sky teeming with aircraft, all while relying on outdated radar technology. The radar screens in front of him displayed only the positions of planes as glowing blips. There was no way to see their altitudes. This meant Dutta was working with a picture that was always incomplete, a partial glimpse of a much larger, invisible puzzle. To fill in the gaps, Dutta depended entirely on pilots to report their altitudes accurately over the radio. The G452 corridor, a narrow and busy airway, forced inbound and outbound flights to share the same stretch of sky. This made precise timing and strict altitude discipline absolutely critical. Any mistake or miscommunication could have disastrous consequences, as hundreds of lives depended on these invisible boundaries being respected. On this day, Dutta cleared Saudia 763 to descend to 14,000 feet, and instructed Kazakhstan 1907 to maintain 15,000 feet, ensuring the required vertical separation. He issued a clear warning to the Kazakh crew about the oncoming Saudia jet, expecting them to hold their assigned altitude and keep a vigilant lookout. The entire system relied on trust that instructions would be followed, and that every crew member understood the stakes. The Kazakh radio operator's response crackled through the static, unclear, but seemingly acknowledging the traffic advisory. Dutta, with no way to double-check, had to take this as confirmation. With dozens of other flights to monitor, he moved on to his next tasks, trusting that the system would hold. But as he glanced back at the radar, he saw two blips slowly converging. The screen gave no hint of their altitude. He was blind to the most crucial detail. The technology forced him to trust, not verify, leaving him with a sense of unease as the seconds ticked by. As the planes drew ever closer, a hidden error was about to become fatal. Dutta, trapped by the limitations of his tools and the system, was left helpless, unable to intervene. unable to prevent the catastrophe that was silently unfolding above the clouds. In the Kazakhstan IL-76 cockpit, the crew worked with metric instruments requiring constant conversion from feet to meters. The captain, distracted and under pressure, miscalculated the assigned altitude. Instead of holding at 15,000 feet, the crew descended below it, entering the Saudia jet's airspace. The controller's warning about the oncoming Boeing was misunderstood or lost in translation. The radio operator's garbled communication failed to convey the urgency. The 1,000-foot safety buffer vanished. This was not reckless flying, but a tragic mix of language barriers, metric imperial confusion, and cockpit miscommunication. The Kazakh crew, believing they were safe, were flying straight into disaster. At 6:40 p.m. over Charkhi Dadri, the two planes collided at nearly 14,000 feet. The IL-76's wings sliced through the 747's, instantly dooming both aircraft. The Saudia jet spiraled out of control. The IL-76 also crashed. In seconds, 349 lives were lost. On the ground, villagers saw fireballs and falling debris scattered for miles. The crash sites were scenes of devastation, twisted metal, burning wreckage, and unimaginable loss. There were no survivors. The silence after the impact was broken only by fires, and the realization of India's worst aviation disaster. The sky, once busy, was now a silent witness to tragedy. Disasters rarely result from a single error. They happen when multiple failures align, creating a chain reaction that no one can stop in time. In aviation, every safeguard is designed to catch mistakes before they become deadly. But when those safeguards break down together, catastrophe follows. Outdated radar couldn't verify altitude, and a single crowded air corridor increased risk. Controllers struggled to keep track of multiple flights in a narrow slice of sky, relying on technology that was decades behind the times. Language barriers and garbled radio transmissions led to miscommunication. Pilots and controllers spoke different languages, and static-filled radios made it even harder to understand critical instructions. The metric versus imperial confusion in the Kazakh cockpit created a fatal misunderstanding. Pilots referenced altimeters and manuals in different units, making it easy to misjudge altitude at a crucial moment. The lack of a traffic collision avoidance system, TCAS, meant no automated warning could save them. In modern aircraft, TCAS acts as a last line of defense, alerting crews to danger even when human communication fails. Each layer of defense had a hole, and on this night, they all lined up. The Swiss cheese model shows how accidents slip through when every barrier has a weakness in just the wrong place. Had TCAS been installed, both crews would have received clear, automated instructions to avoid collision. A simple alert could have changed the outcome, giving pilots precious seconds to react. Instead, the absence of technology and procedural safeguards left disaster unchecked. There were no backup systems, no extra warnings, just a perfect storm of vulnerabilities. The Charkhi Dadri collision was a textbook case of the Swiss cheese model in action. Every layer meant to prevent disaster failed, allowing tragedy to pass through unimpeded. When every safeguard failed, tragedy was inevitable. The lessons learned from this cascade of failures would change aviation safety forever, but for those on board, the consequences were immediate and irreversible. The investigation was swift and clear. Controller Duda gave correct instructions, but the Kazakh crew descended below their assigned altitude. The disaster exposed deep flaws in India's aviation system: outdated radar, congested airspace, and reliance on voice reports. Blaming the crew wasn't enough. The system itself needed reform. India responded with sweeping changes. TCAS became mandatory, and modern radar replaced old systems. Air corridors were redesigned to separate arrivals and departures, reducing head-on risks. English proficiency standards for pilots and controllers were tightened. These reforms transformed Indian aviation safety, The tragedy forced a complete rethink of how India managed its skies. The legacy of Charkhi Dadri was a safer, more modern airspace. The cost was high, but the lessons were lasting. The 349 lives lost over Charkhi Dadri changed aviation forever. Saudia compensated victims' families. Kazakhstan Airlines soon ceased operations. The real legacy was global. The disaster drove standardization in language, procedures, and safety technology like TCAS. The accident report became essential reading worldwide, a reminder of how small failures can align catastrophically. Since the reforms, Indian skies have seen no mid-air collisions, a powerful tribute to the victims. Their loss forced an industry to confront its weaknesses and invest in safety. The rules of aviation are written in blood. Every safeguard is a lesson learned. The memory of those lost is a permanent reminder. In aviation, vigilance and improvement never end.